Recreational marijuana is now legal nationwide in Canada, making it the second country, albeit the largest, to legalize the drug. Now investors are going to have a close eye on how this national market will function. Here to talk more about that is our own cannabis reporter, Bill Peters. Thanks for joining us today, Bill.
Sure.
So, Canada, there are some initial demand hurdles that the country is facing in this initial rollout, right? What are they?
Right. Well, the main thing is that there are concerns that there's just going to be a shortage of supply. There's some research out there that indicates that as little as a third or 2/3 of demand will actually be met.
And it's just at the weed or the actual stores?
That's for the actual supply, the actual supply of cannabis. As far as stores, there's some concern that there aren't going to be enough stores either. Unlike almost everywhere else in retail, physical stores are still kind of where it's at within the cannabis
This is not
industry.
really like a buy online business yet.
And that's just it. That's what no one really knows, is that at least in Ontario, which accounts for around 40% of Canada's population, they're starting out with an online government-run shop, and so there are obviously some big questions as to whether recreational customers are going to want to have their product mailed to them over, I don't know, a day or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever.
So 2018.
Yeah, exactly.
Your pot mailed to you.
Right, exactly. Yeah, if everything else can be delivered, so yeah, sure, why not? But also, there's all these different provinces have different rules, and they have a mixture of private and government-run shops, and different rules surrounding production and sale, and how all that works under one sort of federal umbrella, and how that's all going to function, or what kind of friction that might create. No one really knows yet, and no one really knows how that's going to affect sales of some of these companies that want to be the bigger national players, as one person I was interviewing yesterday told me. So,
Interesting. And so it's also not just a demand issue in terms of the actual supply of marijuana and then the actual stores, but some products aren't even available yet, right?
Right. The things that are getting a lot of attention, particularly like vaping, and then cannabis-infused beverages, which seemingly every beverage company says they're closely paying attention to.
Even Coca-Cola.
Right, yeah. Those kinds of products aren't going to be available until sometime next year, most likely.
Okay, and then lastly, so Tilray, Canopy Growth, and Cronos Group, those are the 3 major stocks that cannabis investors are watching right now, right? How are they reacting to the news, which was obviously announced back in June, so there's been a little bit of time for them to react, but how are they reacting today, and what are analysts expecting from the sector?
Yeah, well, all those stocks are down last time I checked today, so there's some sense that, as you said, this is not exactly a surprise that recreational legalization has been priced in already. But I think analysts generally agree that the stocks could be just kind of a mess for a little while. There are a lot of retail or individual investors that are kind of jumping in and out of positions, and then in the case of Tilray sort of has, for now at least, sort of a limited amount of shares, which means it's particularly touchy when if a bunch of people buy or sell it.
Right.
And so it could still be a bumpy ride. There's analysts and executives say that generally it can still take a few more quarters for financials to matter. There aren't really no one's really settled on.
Yeah, what metrics are they watching here?
That's just it. Beyond like earnings and sales, a lot of these companies are still losing money. Some cost of production could be something that analysts zero in on more, but
so there's no like same store sales or any other kind of particular metric that we'll be watching for during these earnings reports just yet.
No same store sales of weed yet. There's no monthly active users. For medical, there are medical patients registered, but one analyst told me yesterday or earlier this week that that's not a particularly highly regulated number, and even with cost of production, that's not standardized either.
So it's pretty much just all over the place right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So lastly, is there anything that we should watch for in this sector then? Anything we can watch for as we're going forward here, watching Canada's rollout?
Anything to watch for? Well, I think that analysts and executives have tried to temper expectations. We're not going to see some glowing marijuana utopia overnight, but I think that right now. Right now though, as someone told me last month, the clock has started ticking, and the real question is whether investors will be willing to wait another 12 months or so for real results.
That's interesting. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Bill. For more on marijuana stocks, all of these names and more, make sure you're checking out investors.com for the latest. Thanks for watching.